On November 5th, in Shijiazhuang, Hebei, a popularly frequented bridge experienced a suspension cable snapping and subsequent deck fire just a month after its inauguration. This incident prompted netizens to question its quality, with comments like, "This standard is unacceptably poor. I knows hope." Online videos circulated depicting a significant bridge in Shijiazhuang, Hebei, where a suspension cable snapped, sparking a fire as it fell onto the bridge deck, subsequently igniting the surface. Individuals seem to be employing fire extinguishers in an attempt to contain the flames. Official reports indicate the final set of inclined cables for the Hutuo River Grand Bridge was installed on September 7th this year, and the bridge was opened on September 28th. Recognized as the popular bridge due to its multicolored, twinkling nighttime lights, it stands as a key component of the Fuxing Street Municipal Renovation Project. The bridge spans about 22.08 meters, featuring a total main tower height of 146.5 meters, designed with 10 lanes in both directions and a maximum speed of 100 km/h. The project amounted to a significant investment of $1.6 billion USD. The bridge design incorporated 31 pairs of cables arranged in a unique twisted planar layout, inspired by traditional Chinese landscape paintings. The cables varied in length from 103 to 156 meters, weighing between 7 to 10 tons each. Its grand scale and aesthetic design quickly rendered it a regional landmark. Upon the incident, local authorities promptly attributed the bridge collapse to an electrical short circuit in the decorative lighting system installed on the bridge cables and towers. They asserted that the cable itself did not structurally fail. Rather, the heat from the fire caused the cable to disengage from its anchorages and collapse. However, many observers found this explanation dubious. The sudden collapse of such a pivotal structural element raised grave concerns about the materials utilized and the overall structural integrity of the bridge. The Hutuo River Grand Bridge's collapse directed national attention to systemic issues like rushed construction projects, inadequate oversight, and questionable quality standards prevailing in much of China's infrastructure development.
Everywhere there is tofu in China. This house is just a few years old, yet it's surprising to see even the ground around it cracking. On October 10, the ground collapsed at a high school in Sichuan, causing 3 students to fall into a septic tank. It seems the widespread use of substandard materials in China, known as tofu drag, extends beyond buildings. It appears to affect the very paths people walk on. Unfortunately, it's not a joke. Just take a look at these photos. March 18 witnessed a ground collapse in a village in Hunan. Officials claim they couldn't determine the specific cause for obvious reasons. November 19, a substantial hole, over 1 meter deep, suddenly appeared inside a department store in Jiwan City, Henan, due to ground collapse. On June 22, a sidewalk unexpectedly collapsed in Guang'an, causing an elderly bystander to fall into the pit. The prevalence of substandard construction, reminiscent of the tofu drag phenomenon, seems to affect every aspect of infrastructure across China. China's roads continue to draw worldwide shock due to their consistently poor condition. The human toll from China's inadequately constructed infrastructure continues to mount, with no apparent end in sight. Over the past 3 years, hundreds of deaths have been attributed to poorly built roads, bridges, and buildings across China. On November 19, a 7-story residential building in Jiangxi collapsed. Prior to its collapse during reinforcement, residents had already reported its deteriorating condition. In Beihai, Guangxi, on September 30, a mini supermarket suddenly collapsed, resulting in injuries to 4 individuals, 2 of whom were seriously hurt. Despite ongoing investigations, skepticism arose regarding how a modern structure could collapse so suddenly, hinting at fundamental flaws in its construction. Similarly, on September 18 in Shenzhen, a section of road unexpectedly collapsed, swallowing a car. The collapse measured 15 meters in length, 7 meters in width, and 4 meters in depth, indicating significant deficiency. Another incident in Shenzhen involved a section collapsing into a hole in September. Recent mishaps have included bridge failures during heavy rainfall, an unexpected occurrence given that well-constructed bridges elsewhere can withstand such weather. For instance, heavy rain in Sichuan on July 6, 2023, fractured an expressway bridge, causing two vehicles to plunge and catch fire. Chinese officials attributed this to an alleged rain-induced landslide, a claim widely criticized for its implausibility. Similarly, an elevated highway bridge in Heilongjiang province collapsed on August 3, 2023, contrary to established infrastructure engineering standards. Tragically, poorly constructed residential and commercial buildings pose severe risks to occupants, resulting in fatal collapses. On April 29, an illegally expanded residential building in Changsha, Hunan Province, collapsed, claiming 54 lives. Investigations revealed unauthorized additional floors exceeding the original structure's capacity, disregarding safety protocols and dismissing residents' legitimate concerns about structural deformities. These distressing incidents highlight the dire consequences of corrupt practices and the tragic loss of human lives they entail. Highway bridges dangerously undermined. China boasts an unparalleled quantity of highway bridges, surpassing 1 million in number, ranging from simple concrete crossings to architecturally stunning suspended thoroughfares, thanks to an ongoing construction boom. However, quantity doesn't always translate to quality. Reports from state media sources reveal a concerning reality. Almost 100,000 of China's bridges are now classified as dangerous, plagued by defects and deterioration. This staggering statistic highlights that nearly 10 of these bridges are susceptible to collapse or malfunction under stress. Recent catastrophic bridge failures have drawn attention to these dangers. Fatal collapses have been attributed to various factors such as flooding, overloading, flawed designs, shoddy construction practices, and insufficient maintenance. Tragically, in many instances, warning signs were ignored until disasters occurred. For instance, consider the sudden collapse of a road near a metro station in Xi'an on May 13th. A massive sinkhole, roughly 8 meters wide and 5 meters deep, appeared unexpectedly. A woman on her electric scooter tragically fell into the pit, buried by the soil, resulting in her untimely death. The public questioned how such a significant sinkhole materialized without prior warning on a seemingly stable city road. Likewise, a distressing video from a Hanran province in July captured a van plummeting into an enormous sinkhole that emerged along the roadway. The immense size of the hole, estimated at 80 square meters, indicates substantial structural flaws beneath the road surface, far beyond a minor pipe leak. Despite the apparent risks, authorities failed to identify and rectify the issue before a vehicle plunged in. In another incident, on October 10, a bridge along Zijing Road of National Highway 312 in Wuxi, Jiangsu Province, simply collapsed, crushing numerous cars. Lives were lost due to the inferior quality of infrastructure. Justice for these incidents is fervently hoped. Accusations of systemic corruption? Conservative estimates indicate that over 10% of infrastructure funds end up in the pockets of officials rather than being utilized for projects. This prevalent culture of kickbacks and cronyism has cultivated an environment conducive to compromised quality. Professor Hu Yanbo, an esteemed anti-corruption expert at Ping University, examined intricate graph cases and concluded that corruption in infrastructure surpasses 10% across the board. Officials exploit their positions, wielding influence over projects of all sizes, approving subpar plans, embezzling from budgets, and receiving kickbacks from contractors have become commonplace practices. The larger the project, the greater the temptation for officials to carve out additional gains. For contractors seeking an advantage, bribery often paves the way forward. The typical trajectory of infrastructure projects begins with local officials awarding contracts through clandestine agreements with developer allies and relatives. The developers, in turn, resort to using the cheapest materials and compromising on structural integrity to maximize profits. Officials turn a blind eye to these corner-cutting practices as long as their kickbacks are secure. Meanwhile, safety inspectors merely rubber stamp the work. well aware that their salaries hinge on ignoring glaring flaws. Amid significant financial stakes and inadequate oversight, engineering projects offer an enticing landscape for low-risk, high-reward corruption. Investigations post-collapse lay bare the distortion corruption inflicts upon infrastructure development. Take, for instance, the scrutiny following the tragic Sichuan Bridge collapse in July 2023. Observers highlighted glaringly insufficient reinforcement and support structures compared to modern engineering benchmarks. These deficiencies likely precipitated the bridge's failure under stress. Moreover, many noted that the collapsed bridges had previously received accolades for quality, hinting at superficial inspections rather than comprehensive safety assessments. Corruption casts its shadow on every facet of construction, from procurement and planning to materials and upkeep. Neglecting standards might yield short-term gains, but inevitably results in compromised foundations and weakened structures. Consider incidents like the hotel collapse in Suzhou, where developers illicitly added extra floors beyond engineering capacity to boost sales. Officials turned a blind eye, exchanging their silence for bribes. This pervasive corruption infects every layer of construction projects, blatantly disregarding human safety to enrich officials and developers alike. Until governance reforms address this endemic issue, Chinese structures will tragically continue to crumble atop their occupants.
Lack oversight causing infrastructure to collapse. When buildings collapse and dams burst in China, resulting in casualties and devastation, the official response follows a familiar pattern: blaming nature, downplaying human errors, and deflecting accountability. This reflexive impulse to conceal uncomfortable truths obstructs China's efforts to address systemic infrastructure safety issues. Recent damming incidents unveil a culture of evading responsibility. As reported by Dayang Daily in the early hours of July 6, at the 230 km 700 mark of the Dawan section on the Yinguang Expressway in Sichuan from Wanzhou to Dazhou direction, an expressway bridge collapsed, halting two-way traffic. Travel routes from Wanzhou to Dazhou will divert from the Panxi toll station, while routes from Bazong to Wanzhou, Wanyuan to Wanzhou, and Dazhou to Wanzhou remain inaccessible. Adequate accountability for infrastructure failures fosters dangerous complacency. Contractors evade responsibility for hazardous construction risks, officials escape prosecution for negligent oversight, and engineers persist in repeating past mistakes. The systemic corruption and lack of accountability in China's infrastructure construction have led to an endemic crisis, with thousands of hazardous bridges, buildings, dams, and roads nationwide. To genuinely address this issue, the culture of graft and cover-ups must end. Bureaucrats at every level must be held accountable for stringent oversight. Engineering standards cannot be compromised for profit. Contractors and developers who cut corners must face legal consequences. Ordinary citizens should have avenues to report flawed construction without fear of retaliation. Only through transparency, accountability, and a steadfast commitment to safety can China begin to restore confidence in its infrastructure. The government faces a crucial choice: reform or continue risking the lives of its citizens. The path to progress is clear if officials summon the integrity and determination to embrace it.